Hello everyone, this is Akash Chauhan again. And so far we have done with the compilation procedure, and in that we have covered about the preprocessor, compiler, assembler, and linker in detail. So if you want to go through all these topics, you must look at my previous lectures. From today's lecture, we will start with your syllabus. And in today's lecture, we will focus on the need of C++ and we will focus on the need of the object-oriented programming or C++ and the characteristics of C++. Okay, so these both of these topics are quite theoretical, but I will cover this lecture in such a way that you don't need to remember much of this lecture. If you pay, I think if you are going to pay enough attention on the things I'm going to discuss, probably you will remember things automatically, and whenever such topics would come across, you will remember everything. So without any further ado, let's discuss about these topics in detail. Uh, Before discussing the need of object-oriented programming or the characteristics of C++, let's do some groundwork. So groundwork is something that is required to understand some, other topics. So you can say groundwork is, we are doing this groundwork because I consider this is the prerequisite of understanding both of the topics I'm going to discuss today. Okay, so let's understand the basics of programming. Okay, so let's say we are this is the basic program in C++, out and some string here, uh, and we do return 0 and our program ends here. Okay, so this is the program, right? If you are aware that each line in our program is called the instruction or the statement, so we call the each number of line either instruction or what to say, the statement. Often we say instruction. Okay, so as we have understood that all this code would be converted into 0 and 1 format eventually, right? Let's say xyz dot exe would be that file. Okay, so all these instructions, okay, let's say we have 1 and 2, the two this program has 2 lines and 2 instructions. Okay, so all these 2 instructions would be converted into this particular file. Okay, and that file would be in 0 1 format or binary format or hexadecimal format. It depends on the configuration of your system, but or the configuration of the compiler, or we have used G++, right? The G++ and the system configuration would decide what would be the format of your exe file. It depends on that. So but we know that the instruction would be converted into 0 1. So it means our program is consisting of instructions. What we can say, that in our program we have instructions. So far this is clear, right? And if we have number of instructions, like we have 1 and 2 lines in this code, then we are saying this a function. This is main function, right? We say this is the main function. So when the function is nothing but the number of instructions in it. Okay, and if you pay little more attention on that just writing instruction wouldn't make a function. Function is something which has some meaning attached to it. What is this meaning? Is, for example, we have a sum function. Let's say it takes 2 parameters x and y, and it returns x plus y as a integer. Okay, so as you are able to see, this function role is to add up to two variables and return the result. So the meaning of this function is this. So when you call this function, it will apply some logic on that, on those parameters like x and y, and return a result. It may maybe if you use like void, it would not return anything, but in this case, it is returning the result. So function is meaningful. Okay, so function is always containing meaningful instructions in a group. Okay, so probably you would not find this definition in any book because I made it up. So function is something, function is consisting of meaningful instructions. Okay, or more precisely we can say function is a group of instructions and those instructions are well defined. Okay, it is not just random instructions. So well defined instructions. Okay, uh, all these instructions would create a function. So I think you don't need to remember what is function. Okay, so far this is clear. We have instructions, we have a statement, and we have logic written in our function, and we have a function eventually, because function is uh, consisting of meaningful instructions or well-defined instructions. Okay, so and let's say we have a lot of functions like int, subtract, and we have the definition of it here. We have some. So let's say we have many functions. So we have grouped or arranged instructions into a function, and the number of functions. Let's say if we are going to group the number of functions in one unit, then we call this is as a module or a file. So let's open the next page and discuss what is the meaning of that. So when we create xyz.cpp, what is this file? It is some kind of data we use like variable, and we have a lot of functions, right? So this is the file, right? Or we say it a module. You need to focus on that wherever there is a data means let's say we have a variable int a equal to 0. So this is the local variable. So it is saying that we have a data and we have many functions, and we can have all these functions into one file, and this one file is called module. Okay, so we are clear about these terms. Instructions, we say it is statement, and then we have function, then we have file or module. So I think we are clear about these terms and terminology. So why I have discussed all these things? Even we are supposed to discuss something about the need of object-oriented programming. As I said earlier, this is the groundwork that we need, so we can understand what must have what to say initiated, okay, to develop another language. Whereas language like Pascal, C, and COBOL were already there, then there must have been some kind of need. So the C++ was invented, or the OOPS object oriented approach was invented there. So I am trying to go to that road so that we can understand all those limitations or need of inventing a language. Okay, so if we can reach to a point where we can understand, okay, these kind of things we will need at the end, so we need to create another language for that. So This is what I am trying to do with this ground law. So any language, either it's a C, C++, Pascal, or any other language, right? They always consisting of instructions, statement, functions, file, or module. Okay, they, in okay, I forgot to mention one thing. This is a project. So project contains a lot of files. Okay, a single file contains a lot of functions, and a function contains a lot of instructions. So this is the flow actually. So this is how we create any language. But what about these two languages? These languages, even this and this, these two languages were already there before C++ programming. So these both of these, C and Pascal and COBOL, all these languages were there, and we used to say these languages, or we say these languages as a procedural language. Procedural languages. Okay, so what is procedural language? Procedural language is something where we are saying the well-defined instruction would create function, okay, and the well-defined function would create a file, okay. The well-defined function would create file. So this is actually, if you are able to see, there is a structure in it. I think you must be able to see a structure. Well-defined instruction would create function, well-defined function would create file. Okay, so procedural language is nothing but the structural language. Structural language. So we understood that the C, okay, let me write it, C and Pascal and any other such procedural language, they have some predefined structure in there, and this would lead to some problems. We will discuss about that structural programming or the procedural programming would lead to a lot of problems. We will discuss all those problems very soon, but you must understand that there are a lot of problems with the structural language. Okay, so we understood that the Pascal and C is the procedural are the procedural language, and C++ is the OOPS based language. These are both procedural language, but C++ is the OOPS based language. So probably in a brief, if I would say, it means that if we understand all these problems, okay, and we can resolve all those problems somehow, okay, we identify all those problems, and if we can resolve all those problems, it means the new module, it means we have resolved all these problems, and in this case the C++ is that language. Okay, so C++ has resolved all the limitations or the problems created by the structural language or the structural programming. Okay, so all the limitations, we will definitely will be discussing about the problems with the structural language or the programming, and we will find out the solution of all those problems provided by C++, and not theoretically. We will look at the probably at the deepest aspect of understanding how to resolve those problems and how C++ has overcome over those problems or the limitations in structural programming. Okay, so without any further ado, let's discuss about the problem. Again, I would say that in this lecture we are going to focus on the need of object-oriented programming or the characteristics of C++, but we are doing some groundwork to reach to a point where we can understand the what has initiated, to even invent a new language. Okay, so we are going to reach to that point. So let's discuss about those limitations. So for that I need to take an example, okay, with functional programming. Again, I would say this is the note. Okay, this is the note, I would say. functional programming, or we say is same as we have used the procedural language. Procedural language. So functional programming is based on procedural language. You must always remember this one thing. Okay, that is why we say C and Pascal is functional language, are functional language, and it is a functional programming language. Okay, so you must remember this term is a functional programming language. We don't say it's a procedural language, but it is based on procedural aspect of programming. Okay, so functional programming is based on, you must remember this thing, this is based on the functional structure. Okay, this is based on functional structure, or generally we say it's a functional language, because, oh sorry, the procedural language, because we follow some procedure, we follow some structure to execute this statement, or even to understand the meaning of those statements. Okay, so let's understand those limitations. Limitations or problems with structural programming or procedural language. Okay, so let me, okay, so we will learn about the limitations of that. So let's have a scenario in that okay, I think you guys must be aware about this one thing, that if I define int x equal to 10 and this a equal to 0, it means let me make a view. So this is actually global variable and this is actually local variable. Okay, so in a function, okay, we have global variable, so I'm writing simply global variable, and then we have the function, and inside that function we have local variable and some logic. So far this is clear, right? Okay, so let's say this particular global variable we have, okay, and this local variable is restricted to be used in the function itself. We have another function where we have local variable and the separate logic for this function, and this particular local variable is also be restricted to be used in this function only. And if we are going to use the global variable here, then we have to access this global variable in this function. Okay, so this is clear. It means that we have a lot of functions, they might be accessing the global variable and the local variable itself. Okay, so let me create a picture and it will give you the clear view of what would be the limitations of structural programming. Okay, so let's say we have maybe simple circle would serve the purpose. So this is F1. Okay, maybe little large F1, F2, F3, F4. So these are different functions in a file. So I'm talking about just one file right now. Let's say xyz dot cpp. Okay, and we have global variable 1. We have global variable 2. We have global variable 3. Okay, so this function might be having x, y, z, I, okay, p variable and q variable, let's say, and they are also accessing the global variables we have defined in the file. So they might be accessing the f1 function might be accessing xy is the local variables of this function, and v1 and v3 are the global variables. Okay, again this might be accessing this, and this might be accessing this, or maybe this, so this, or maybe this. So this is, if you are able to see, this is quite complex, right? We don't know which function is accessing which variable. But let's understand one case. What if we want to change this global variable? Let's say the present type of the global variable v1 is integer, and we have decided that let's change it to long. But what will happen? The other functions, like three functions, if you pay little attention to that, mm, in this case we are able to see, but generally it is not the same way. Okay, so we are able to see that three functions are going to use this v1. Okay, and we are going to change the long. Okay, it means we are somehow going to change the logic written in all these f1 and f3 f4. So we understood this one concept, that if we want to change integer v1, we want to change this to long, it means we have to make changes in functions f1, f3 and f4 logic somewhere. Okay, because it is expecting that the value of v1 would be integer, and we have written the code like that. Then we have to change the logic part of this. Why? Even if we are changing just a one variable. Okay, I think you must have started to looking at the issues in the structural programming, that even if you are changing the type of a variable, the global variable, you have to make changes in all the functions going to use that variable. Okay, let's say we have made the changes. This is the latest L, F1L, F3L, F4L. Okay, so we have made the changes in the logic. So we say we have changed logic. It means the logic we have written in these functions have changed. What if it is accessing, if you understand that f1 is also accessing v3 variable. Okay, so if we have changed the structure of that, then the we are going to access global variable v3 as well, then it would affect this as well. It may affect, right? We cannot be sure, but in case it is integer, and if we have changed the logic as a long, then it will say it is integer and we are expecting the long. Okay, so the problem with the structural programming is, even if you change a global variable type, it makes the whole structure meaningless, or you need a lot of work to normalize things. It may require, but for maybe in this case we are able to see in a simple way that only these function would be accessing. But if you create a huge project, it means maybe thousands of or 200 of functions are going to use a variable. It means if you are going to change make a simple change in a global variable, you are up to change all those functions you have written. So we don't find it very useful, although it has been used for so very long time. But those times, the process of handling things was quite direct. But in today's time, it is not the need. We want to create a thing at a time, and if there is a change in that particular thing in future, it should be reliable. It should be written in that way that if there are some changes in the future, then you must be able to do that without any hassle. Okay, so this is the main, or I would say the most important aspect to understand what was the problem with the structural programming. So we understood the problem, so there would be some solution provided by the C++ language. Then only we can say C++ is the better language than the C language in this particular scenario, right? So to understand that thing, let's discuss a point. But we understood, I hope you understood this problem, that if you are going to make change in a single variable, it is affecting the whole structure. So we want to break this structure. This is the main thing. Okay, so to do so, let's first try to understand that this model is not realistic. Why it is not realistic? Because if f1 f4 is going to access g1, f3 is going to uh, the v1, and f1 is going to be access what to say, the v1. then why have we have not created a separate file for all these functions? If we want to make change, because this variable is only being used by these functions, so it means we are somehow accessing random variables. So if we can break this chain, we can break the structural aspect of the programming. Okay, so to understand that, we can say that this is not the realistic way of doing any programming. Okay, this is not realistic. What would be the realistic? When we can club things in such a way that they seems real. So if there are changes in the future in the real things, and if we have created the functions and the variables like that, then in reality things wouldn't disturb that much. So let's look at this realistic view of programming, but this is not realistic module. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Actually, the lecture became quite long, so I had to divide this lecture into two parts. So, from in the next part, I will cover the realistic modeling of a language, where we can resolve that structural issue we have discussed in this lecture. Okay, so let's discuss the rest of the part in the next lecture. Thank you.